Thanks for that, Darren. Appreciate you walking us through some of the upside with Pickle Crow and the gold and the copper in Green Bay. Next up, moving right along, would like to welcome Garett Macdonald, President and CEO of Maritime Gold. Going to walk us through the Hammerdown Project in Newfoundland and then the development ahead.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Garett Macdonald from Maritime Resources. Really happy to be here and tell you about a new gold project that's coming online this year in the great province of Newfoundland and Labrador. It's actually one of our machines that's digging today at our mine site, so how about that? Okay. Key points for investors. This is an investor conference, so we're going to tell you why you should be owning Maritime stock. We just raised $20 million to fund the development of the project. We're fully permitted to construct the project. We have our own processing plant that is operating. We're now pouring gold. We actually are, at a small scale, the only gold producer currently in the province. We have a very high-grade asset called Hammerdown, which was a former mine that operated back in the early 2000s when, if you remember, gold was $280 an ounce, $300 an ounce. I was working for a gold producer at that time, and I was pretty confident I was going to get fired, so I left Timmins, and I ended up in Fort McMurray when oil was $17 a barrel. So here we go again, back to the Hammerdown Project at a gold price 10 times what it was back in the day. And so we're putting all of this together to start gold production this year, generate cash flow, and grow the company kind of step by step, working our way up through into what we hope is going to be a 100,000 ounce a year producer. This is our peer group. I often compare ourselves to some of these other companies that are in a similar situation where they're ramping up a production or into production, new mines, or maybe they're just, they're starting, they're just about to get going. I think for the last few years, this is I've seen investors have been looking for scale for a long time, looking for 200, 300,000 ounce a year projects. But there's a nice little niche here for the sub 100,000 ounce a year group of companies that can get into production quickly with very low capital, with lots of upside from there. So I think with the the gold price coming to where it is now, but almost $3,400 an ounce, cash flow is certainly on the minds of investors, and that's exactly where we're positioned now to be one of the only few companies coming to market in Canada with a new producing asset this year. Newfoundland and Labrador, we just had the panel discussion, which I was really happy to be part of. Our project here is up in the northern part of the island in the Baie Verte, Green Bay district. We own the Hammerdown Project. We actually own 2 processing plants in the area. So this is a little different for junior companies to have these mineral processing assets. We bought these a couple years ago, and we've been taking advantage of what's available. So as we first came in here a few years ago, we looked around and said, okay, what do we got? We have a high-grade deposit, and there's processing facilities in the region. Okay, we all know how long it takes to permit and build and finance a brand new mill, new tailings facility. These are big capital items for most companies as they develop projects. And here they were sitting here. Okay, so we actually invested quite a bit of money into these assets. We now own them. The one up to the northwest corner there is called Pine Cove, which we bought a couple years ago. That's the process plant that we actually turned on back in February. We hired probably another 40 people back to work, and we've been processing gold since really since March 1st. And most of that material is from some stockpiles that we located around the mill site. We actually found close to $2 million of gold in the mill through the pipes that we cleaned up in some of the tanks, which was a really lucky find there. So long term, as I mentioned, we'd like to get to 100,000 ounces a year in the future. We think there's mineral potential certainly to do that, but we're starting first with our Hammerdown project, which is down to the south there, hauling the ore directly to the Pine Cove mill, which is now operating, and that is the plan for 2025, which so far so good. We've restarted the mill. We've hired people back to work. There's a great workforce locally. We don't have a camp. People are home every night, which is a big advantage for a company like us that is trying to start up a new project. Those are our first 2 bars that we poured. That's kind of fun to show this to you guys, because last year I was talking about this, and well, here they are. So good progress there. Second half of the year is all about execution, Hammerdown development. Our mine geologists, or our geologists that work for the company now, are now turned into mine geologists. No more exploration until that thing's running. That's the direction for now. We have a lot of exploration potential, I'm just joking, but there will be that as well. But the focus here is on the mine ramping up this year. Some of the milestones along the way over the last couple of years, I like to say that's our share price graph. Actually, ours might even be a little bit better, but that's the gold price. But along the way, my point is here that we've just been steady progress, working our way up through the studies, the permitting, the acquisition of infrastructure like the mills, strategic investments, Firefly Metals. Darren was just here, was one of our investors, working our way all the way up through recently a $20 million financing just after PDAC to fully fund our project for this year. So great progress for a little company. This is the Hammerdown Project. This is what it looks like. Richmont was here back in 2000, 2004. Very low gold prices, very high cutoff grade, 8 gram per ton cutoff. So if you can imagine, it was a 15-gram deposit, ran for 4 years. We're looking at it as an open pit. There's about 110 narrow veins. Of course, if you can take them all at once, you've got a nice wide zone here. We do have some selective mining in some of these veins as well. That's actually a picture of the mineralization from last week at the mine site. So this is a very low capital project to get off the ground. And we're not trying to be the biggest, meanest gold producer out there right away. We're going to start in pieces, 50,000 ounces a year from a high grade 5 gram open pit going to a mill that's already running. That's how we get going. That cash flow will then help us invest in exploration, looking for other projects to get to that 100,000 ounce a year target. But we're going to do it step by step. One of the key de-risking steps for us was the grade control drilling that we did recently at Hammerdown. So for a small company to get into production, you really have to understand the ore body. This is a very well understood ore body and drilled. We did another 273 drill holes in a very small area in the first year of what we think is a production profile here for the mine, with some fantastic results. We want to highlight some of these. 12 grams over 28 meters, that's at surface. But you don't see that too often in an open pit. So that was really nice to see. The metallurgy is great. We're getting about 93, 94% recovery expected at our plant. And this was a very good thing to do. We're now updating the mine plan to include some of these great results. Interestingly, since this was an old mine, it was cut and filled, right? So there was some backfilled. All the stopes are actually backfilled. The backfill material itself is actually ore. And we're seeing about 2 or 3 gram per ton material in the backfill. At the time when Richmont was mining, that was waste, 8 gram cutoff grade. So it's a little bit of upside here. It's coming out of the mine anyway, so we think this is going to be a big win for everybody. The key to, I guess, all of this is, as I mentioned on the panel discussion, is the Pine Cove Mill. So we now have the ability to generate cash flow. Cash flow is important, $3,400 an ounce with your 73-cent Canadian dollar. That's pretty impressive. So we now have that ability to send ore to the mill, get it through the plant, pour the doré bars, and sell them. So this is the Pine Cove facility. It's been on care and maintenance for about 2 years, and as I mentioned, in February, we turned it back on. We brought people back to work. It's got a large in-pit tailings facility, which is good for well over a decade, or maybe even 20 years. A 1,300 ton a day process plant. Behind the mill, you can see all of the, I'm sorry. No, we screwed that up. Okay. We're going the wrong way. There we go. Anyway, the mill is there. We got a big tailings facility. There's a really interesting feature with this site too, is the port. Okay, there's a deep water port that actually has a company involved in producing aggregates from the waste dumps from the old mine. They crush it, they wash it, they size it, and they load it onto Panamax-sized ships, 60,000 tons a shot down into Florida, recently as far as Guyana. So it's a good solution to getting rid of waste rock, okay? It actually opens up the area for us. So that port is a very important strategic, I guess, piece of infrastructure for the region. There's plans potentially to expand it. There's a great option to export materials from that port, such as copper concentrate. There's even opportunities, we think, to bring materials in long-term to process at that site. So this is a very, very interesting site, and we're happy to be going there. This is our first gold production from our Pine Cove mill. We restarted, like I said, a couple months ago. Stockpile material just lying around the plant site. We were able to clean that up, get people back to work, get people trained, and that was the big advantage of doing this, was to get everyone ready for the Hammerdown project coming online later this year. Of course, we were able to see some gold production, which is great. We've made an investment as well into the plant already. We actually bought some new equipment to give us some extra grinding capacity. This arrived here from a long drive from northern part of the Yukon. We bought some extra equipment to come in and improve recoveries and increase throughput for the Hammerdown project. Hammerdown is about an hour south of the mine site, or sorry, of the mill, but even at the mill itself, there are lots of opportunities for growth. We can see several targets just around the mill site here. The mill is on the bottom left corner. Other deposits that just, certainly at these gold prices, haven't been looked at enough. There's a lot of exploration potential. Now that the mill's running, these deposits just have to cover the cost of development. There's not a big capital, chunk of money that they have to overcome. So that really opens the door up for all kinds of potential here around the mill site. Really anywhere within, I would say, 100 kilometers of this mill is now, I think, kind of open for business and should be looked at. So a little bit on exploration. All I can tell you here is that Maritime, over the last few years, we haven't done a lot of exploration, not too much. We've focused the company on development, getting to cash flow, and the timing couldn't have been better. We're arriving here at $3,300, $3,400 an ounce, and now we're ready to go. Permitting, financing, operating mill, things are starting to line up really nicely. But we do want, of course, to start exploration and look for the other opportunities that are out there. And as an engineer, looking at geology and showing you, I'm not going to tell you about the geology here in the details. What I can tell you, though, is that we have very large fault structures that come together, and that's really where Hammerdown was created. We have the same situation repeated several times on our property package, where we've had little to no exploration at all, but we can see quartz veins, high-grade gold, lots of copper as well, showing up on our properties. There's a lot of potential. We will get to it with cash flow from our mine, or we can, there's a parallel process that has to happen with that. But it is on the agenda for sure, later this year, early next year. But the focus for the company currently is development and execution. Even at the mine site itself, we don't have to go very far. We have targets within 100 meters of our main Hammerdown deposit that we know about, but we haven't drilled. We've got very good information from geophysics, some historic drilling, some that we've done as well. Hammerdown looks to be, for us, about an 8-year mine life at the moment, but there's potential with very little extra drilling to double that, also along strike and even at depth. So just on the mine site footprint itself, lots and lots of potential to grow this. The little green thing that we see there, so the yellow shapes there are gold. The green is a VMS horizon that kind of creeps into the footwall of the gold zones. We never really looked at that before because we didn't have a way to process base metals, and it just wasn't large enough to really get too excited about. But our Pine Cove mill, which is now operating, is a flotation plant next door to a port that's shipping products internationally already. I think this is a really interesting opportunity to maybe look at copper. There's copper in here, there's zinc, there's silver, along with gold. So potential along this whole belt here, not just for gold, but also critical metals. Something we don't talk a lot about because we haven't really done enough work on it. But it looks really interesting to us, so stay tuned. That could come into focus here in the next year or two. Finally, we talked about infrastructure, the Nugget Pond Gold Circuit. This is something we acquired from a company called Rambler back in 2021. This was the original gold mill that processed ore from Hammerdown when it was operating. Great facility, been kept in great shape. I think this is something that's going to be very valuable to Maritime in the future here. We're looking for ways to put ore in this mill, of course. I mean, as I mentioned, our target is to do 100,000 ounces a year as a company in the future, starting with what we have at Hammerdown. Lots of exploration potential. I can see this being used at some point. There's also opportunities for other companies in the area to look at it. We've had a lot of interest in the plant. So we'll see what happens. It's a very valuable strategic asset for the Baie Verte district, and we were happy to pick that up a couple years ago. Finally, on the corporate structure, 11 seconds, here we go. We just raised $20 million. You'll notice we have a lot of shares outstanding. There is a 10-to-1 consolidation happening in about 2 weeks from now. Our major shareholders include Firefly Metals, Eric Sprott, Dundee Corporation, and several other institutions. You can see that we're very tightly held as a company, and we currently have about $18 million in working capital. And analyst coverage, SCP Resource Finance has a 22-cent per share target on the company, currently trading around 10.5 cents. So that's Maritime. Any questions, please see me after. Thanks very much.